and welcome to Politics Unplugged. I'm Anne Trujillo. After 8 years as Colorado's governor, John Hickenlooper is done, term limited, and finds himself in a unique position trying to figure out what to do next. Well, this Thanksgiving week, I had a chance to sit down with Governor Hickenlooper and reflect on his time in office. So, let's see, Inauguration Day is January 8th?
Yes.
So what happens January 9th? What are you doing?
January 9th, I'm going to sleep in, and that is, a great luxury. I'm generally somebody who gets up pretty early every morning, and this will be a great opportunity. And then I'm hoping that we're trying to work out my wife's schedule with my schedule, but I'd love to, we never got a honeymoon, and I'd love to take a week off or 10 days off and go someplace different that we've never been before, and just live a week together without journalists or staff or anything. Just take some time off. So
what, I'm sure you think about it all the time, what that will feel like to no longer be governor.
Well, and you realize that I was mayor for 7.5 years, and I was mayor right up until the day I became governor. So I resigned being mayor of Denver on the same day. I walked across the Civic Center Park and did my inauguration, was sworn in on the same day. So I've been in continuous public service for 15.5 years.
Right.
I mean, that's the difference. I mean, it's going to be to not have a team where we're working on some of the most challenging issues there are. That'll be different. And I'm gonna, I'm bittersweet. I'll miss that all the people I work with and meeting with the public, the different groups in the.
So 15 years in public service, and your son Teddy, this is all he knows is a dad who's in public service. So how has that affected his growth, your relationship with your son?
Well, we'll never know for sure what it could have been. But I think Teddy and I are as close as any father and son. We tried to create special moments. Last year, in all the years, I've tried to get to at least half his baseball games, half his soccer games when he was playing soccer. After I got re-elected in 2014, Teddy and I took a 5-day trip just together, just the men, and we went to Iceland. And we walked, we were talking about this a couple nights ago. We walked 2 hours one night, and we just talked. Yeah. So I maybe haven't had as much time with my son as I would have liked, but the time we've had, we really used well. And I am, I was in the restaurant business for 15, 16 years, and I never got home before 11 o'clock. When I was mayor and when I was governor, I tried to be home at least 2 nights a week, and I try for 3, but usually 2 nights a week where I'd be home, by 6 o'clock and have dinner with Teddy and have a real, a normal life.
Well, and we've also seen you go through a divorce and a marriage. What did this job, what role did this job have in all of that?
When my ex-wife, Helen Thorpe, I think one of the best nonfiction writers in America, a creative talent, but she didn't like being First Lady. And it was a burden to her. I think it got in the way of her writing and her life. She also, I think it was hard for her to have me come home, and have the cell phone go off, or there'd be something I'd have to deal with. There'd be a press issue or a shooting or a wildfire. It seemed like there was always something, and especially those first 4 years, the first couple of years, we had droughts and then wildfires and shootings. I mean, those first couple of years were really tough. Sure. And it took a difficult situation and really made it impossible. And I don't know, I think she is much happier now with an independent life. Her book that came out in 2012, Time Magazine called it the #1 nonfiction book of the year, right. Soldier Girls. She got certain, and she dedicated to me, right? We'd been separated for 2 years. There was I think she was definitely happier. And I didn't go on a date for a year and a half anyway. But then I met Robin at a gala, and we kind of got to talking, and we both shared this kind of love for what the West means. We started singing that song, you know, Don't Fence Me In. I want to ride to the place where the west commences, howl at the moon until I lose my senses. And that, you know, it's funny, she emailed me a day later and said, remember that thing we were talking about? And she continued one of our discussions. And I thought, that's interesting, because, you know, she's younger than I was. I didn't really think anything about it. And then, so I emailed back to her, and we had a little email exchange. And then, you know, 2 days later, she emailed me again and said, what about this? We didn't really think about this, did we? And she travels incredibly. So, you know, I mean, that was a relationship that really kind of grew slowly and it's like having a little small garden and tending it really well. And she loves, you know, she loves politics and wakes up in the morning. You know, first thing she does is she reads the blogs and the politics.
More than you?
Oh, way more than me. You know, I love getting things done. I love bringing a team together and coming up with solutions. She really loves the politics, and you know, I find it interesting, and I think it's an important part of getting things done. But I don't quite relish it the way she does.
Interesting. Well, when we come back, the governor's thoughts on what he will do if he decides not to run for president. Listen, Governor Hickenlooper may not be the only Coloradan considering a run for higher office. Senator Michael Bennet has apparently reached out to influential Democrats to see about navigating a campaign in Iowa. Iowa is considered a key testing ground for how a candidate will fare in the presidential campaign. Now, back to Governor Hickenlooper. He says it will be a couple of months before he makes a decision about a presidential run. Right now, he's concentrating on finishing his term as governor, and I asked him about his successes while in office.
You know, when people talk about legacies and things, when I came in, we were at probably 40th in the country in job creation, I remember. We were really lagging from the Great Recession. Right. And we went out, we called it the Bottom-Up Economic Development Plan. We called it the Colorado Blueprint. We went to all 64 counties and we asked each one, what do you want to see for your jobs, your economy in 40 years or 50 years? And how can the state help you? And we did this in every county, and we heard kind of the same things, right? Less red tape and bureaucracy, make the government more pro-business, better access to capital, celebrate innovation and technology. Don't just advertise the state as a tourism destination, but advertise as a place to come, you know, not just open a business, but build a life. And, you know, for the last 2 years, we've been the #1 economy in America. And it's brought issues like affordable housing, and, you know, we need additional infrastructure in our transportation. But those are problems we can fix. And having a strong economy, I think, is a good platform by which you can solve a lot of problems. And I think, you know, Governor Polis is going to have a lot to do. We've left him lots of things to work on, but at least he's got the momentum of a strong economy. And I think that's a good foundation to find solutions.
Is there something that you feel like you just didn't get to that still nags at you?
Well, we certainly we tried initiatives to raise revenue for transportation. Yeah. We tried through the General Assembly. We did get a bunch more money for affordable housing, but not enough. Yeah. And I think, you know, Colorado is a low-tax state. We're one of the 10 lowest tax states when you add them all together in the country, and I accept that. I understand that. I think it puts the burden on all of us that we have to be part of finding more efficient, more effective ways of delivering solutions. And I think we've done that to a large extent. So I don't feel that there are too many things that we really, you know, screwed up or I mean, basically what we tried to do was go out to the people of Colorado, along the Front Range, on the West Slope, out on the Eastern Plains, and really listen to what their vision was for Colorado, and then try to find ways to align all those different visions and create kind of a North Star for the whole state.
Okay, so you have made it clear you are considering a run for president. Seriously, why would you want that job?
Yeah, I know. That's a fair question. And that's part of what we've been trying to establish is, can anyone do the job? Or is the system so hopelessly broken that, you know, that no one can do it? I look at it if you think about it, what we've done in Colorado, where we've been able to bring different people together. Like when I was mayor, we got all 34 mayors to unanimously support fast tracks, build 122 miles of new track. That's why Union Station and the light rail out to the airport exists, is because all 34 mayors, Republicans and Democrats, came together to support that. As governor, we brought the oil and gas industry together with the environmental community to create the first and so far only comprehensive methane regulations in the country. Isn't that sort of what the country needs, is less attacking and saying why that person's wrong, why they're bad, and maybe a little more rolling up the sleeves and sitting down and saying, all right, we may disagree on this and this and this, but we kind of agree on this. Let's get something done. I'm not going to buy into your total vision, but I do recognize that you're trying to work towards many of the same goals that I am, right? And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the federal government right now, is nobody works together, nobody listens to each other. And that's what we do better than anyone in Colorado. And almost every other candidate who's mentioned for the Democrats comes from either the East Coast or the West Coast. They're almost all in the US Senate or the US House, right? They're all part of Washington. I'm not sure the solutions are going to come from Washington.
So how close are you to deciding?
I think we're getting closer. We'll see, but I think we're trying to figure out a way to make up our mind by the end of February.
If you don't, what would you do?
My whole life, I've never really planned out one career after another. I think I might teach a little bit. I think there's I was a terrible student. But sometimes the worst students
I read your book.
Sometimes the worst students make good teachers. I think I would continue to work on some of the core issues we've really worked hard on, like workforce, these apprenticeships and skills-based learning. I think young people today are going to have to collect skills their whole life. Because just like I got laid off in the mid-'80s and there were no geology jobs, and I had to reinvent myself, I think that's going to become more common as we get autonomous vehicles and automation and artificial intelligence. All this stuff we're still going to have jobs, but they're going to require different skills. And kids today are just going to have to get used to collecting skills like I used to collect baseball cards, right?
Let's do a little bit of a lightning round. I'm going to give you a couple words or a phrase or a name. You tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
These are always so dangerous.
Rural Colorado schools.
Need more resources.
Nathan Dunlap.
Deserves to spend the rest of his life in jail.
Tabor.
A misguided but popular restraint.
How about a secret indulgence?
Coffee ice cream.
Nancy Pelosi.
Amazingly hard worker and amazingly talented. I think it'll be interesting. My guess, I've been told that she's trying to decide what her transition will be, and she's always exhibited great leadership for Democrats, and has, when she's being attacked relentlessly by the other side, and often for things that she had no control over. I think sometimes she's been attacked because she's a woman, to be really blunt. I think it's great that she's going to get to go out as a speaker on her own terms. I think she's earned that. But I also think that there's a youth movement in the House, and probably I think Speaker Pelosi is going to recognize that, and she'll figure out exactly what the right transition is.
Donald Trump.
I respect the office of the president, and Donald Trump is the president. I am deeply disappointed in how he conducts himself as president of the United States.
Let's say you do run and you get to debate Donald Trump. What would your debate strategy be? He clearly rules at that.
I think simple facts and simple statements of values. And don't try and match him for hyperbole or try to counterattack him. With a name like Hickenlooper, right? There's no nickname he can give me I haven't heard, right? I mean, Chicken Cooper, Poop and Scooper, you go down the list, I learned it all in the schoolyard. I think with someone like Trump, it's better to use humor and just kind of laugh along with him. I mean, if you think about it, most of what he says is kind of ridiculous, and people get so tied up in knots about it. You know, I think he's bad for the country, right? And I think he weakens our democracy, which weakens democracy in the world. You know, I think trying to fight him and throw mud at him isn't gonna make that point as successfully as just, you know, why did you do this? Why did you do that? You know, why could you possibly call John McCain a failure, right? I mean, how can you deride the free, independent media when it is oftentimes the only thing that stands between us and, you know, a despot, or you know, businesses out of control?
And I did ask the governor if he would consider running for U.S. Senate if he doesn't run for president, and he says that's a better game for young politicians. When Politics Unplugged returns, the governor talks about how great of a state Colorado is, so stick around.
So last weekend we were down in Colorado Springs with 17 of the new governors who'd just been elected. We called it New Governor Boot Camp. And you know, for 2 days, a bunch of us experienced governors kind of talked to them. But then at night we're all having dinner and drinking and telling stories. And it was amazing. There's not one governor that I would trade places with, that I would rather be governor of their state. Just not one. And I think that's probably true of most governors, to be honest. But I will say that if you were to ask almost all governors what would be their second favorite state to be governor of, I'll bet the majority of them would say Colorado. I mean, the number of people that admire what we've done and how we've become this state about innovation and ideas, and where anyone who's willing to work hard enough could create their own version of the American dream. You know, I think people are aware of that, and even other governors are saying, wow, there's something in your water.
Clearly, Governor Hickenlooper loves his adopted state of Colorado. So I wanted to know what he's been telling Governor-elect Jared Polis about the job. Let's talk about Governor-elect Polis. I know you've spoken several times. What kind of advice are you giving him?
Well, first, Governor Polis doesn't need advice from me. He has spent a lot of time thinking about where he wants to take the state and how the best way is to do that. My advice to him has mostly been around processes and things that generally I've told him more about the things we tried that didn't work than what has worked. I mean, he's seen what has worked. People often don't know the things that don't work as well. But what I've been most impressed by is he is a attentive, focused listener. And every conversation we've had, I felt like I've been heard. Doesn't mean he's going to do what I suggested. As a matter of fact, I know on several situations, I know that he's not going to do what I suggested. But he is a very attentive listener, and I think that's a very important and powerful attribute for a governor.
And what do you think his biggest challenges are as we look to the future of Colorado?
You know, I think it's, as with all of us, to bring the state together. This is a very diverse set of communities. And there are a lot of forces pulling us apart, and he's going to have his work cut out. I think that's where we spend a huge amount of our time, trying to pull people together. And I know that he wants to figure out how to control healthcare costs. The inflation is just crazy. We worked on that for 8 years. It's not easy, but I think we got some momentum, and I think he's got some new ideas and things like that. Education, he cares deeply about. Future of our children. I think he's going to do a good job.
So as you leave, do you have any parting words for Coloradans? Anything you want to say to people?
You know, what I feel more than anything else is deep gratitude that the people of this state entrusted me with the responsibility to do the best I could, to try and address issues like the economy and reevaluate rules and regulations in every agency of the state, that they allowed us to, how do we have cleaner air, become greener in terms of how we utilize energy. That kind of responsibility really is basically an open door to allow you to work with the best and the brightest, the smartest people, sometimes the people that have devoted their whole lives to helping poor people or helping disadvantaged communities. In many cases, those are some of the greatest people you can ever meet. The people of Colorado, by giving me and trusting me with this job, allowed me to work with all these amazing people, both on my staff and the people in the public that we worked with. That's probably the greatest gift I've ever been given.
And we want to thank Governor Hickenlooper for his 8 years leading our state, and we wish him luck no matter what the future holds. Listen, if you ever have a question or a segment idea, you can tweet us at Denver7Politics, and you can watch today's segments anytime at thedenverchannel.com/Politics Unplugged. We thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here next Sunday for another edition of Politics Unplugged.